about the use of time. He explained it to me out there. And I told him, well, sure, when everybody gets up and leaves, it'll be over. And he said that would be all right with him. I'd like for you to go by his store and look. He gets, I'm sure, do you know him as a blunt man and get to the point? He's got a sign in there that says, this is not a museum, this is a store, buy something. And so I know what to do now. We didn't assign you a topic, but we thought we'd like for you to talk about the history of Tippah County. If that includes World War II, we'd like to hear about that as well.
Well, that's another story.
And the time's yours. Okay, put that in the minutes. You know, after the 2 DVDs, we'll have him back for WW2.
There's not enough hours in a day to cover both of those things. However, I may stray a little bit off of that, off the Tippah County into World War II. It'd be hard not to. I was going to tell you, I had no problem. I came up with an idea for how to start the program from the get-go, but I'm still working. I haven't found a rich, suitable ending for the thing, so y'all have to bear with me.
There, Odaline has a trap door that's built right underneath.
Okay, yeah.
There's a handle. Okay.
On my guard there. Let's put this in the guideline, but I don't expect to refer to it. This is looking at the surroundings, the location here coming in on the front. It's the old school bell. The one out here that Lon and Benny May gave from the old Ripley High School. When I was going to school, we all came to school by that, and for recess, they don't have recess anymore, I don't think. We've got so many obese children. But anyhow, we used to hit the ground running when the 10 o'clock prayer recess was. And the bells were tolled at the start of school and so forth. It wasn't just at school. We had a bell over at the Presbyterian Church, I remember particularly, that they had. I think they had one at the back. What is it? I'm sure they did. Anyhow, every Sunday morning, time for church, when the bells would start pealing, to alert everybody to get the heck on down where they belong to church on Sunday. And on Halloween night, there'd always be some of the older boys trick or treat. I saw this tree. Back in those days, there were more tricks than there were trees. In fact, nobody was looking for trees. It was just what kind of devilment they could get in. And always around midnight on Halloween night, you hear the church bells start ringing and ringing and ringing. And some of the bigger boys, one morning we came to work the morning after Halloween night, and they had put an old outhouse up on the square up there. They put an old outhouse up on top of something, I think on one of the Kroger stores. And this ain't on my program. This is the trouble. The reason I say I don't know how long I didn't time myself. I don't know where I run out of time. Looks like I won't run out of program before the time's up. Anyhow, one Halloween, somebody got a dang horse. It's old Ripley High School. The study hall was upstairs. They led that blame horse up the dang stairs and across the stairs. One time they had somehow they had I don't know whether this show coming through or not. They brought a dang elephant up there. That must have been connected to some show. Back in this again, this ain't on my program, but I'll get to it in a minute. Son Dickerson told about one Halloween. Back in the Depression, they had commodities. Well, we've got food stamps now. There's full food stamps now. And they started giving grapefruit out. Tippah Wholesale was the distributor. And they come in on the freight train. There'd be a lot of them rotten, and there'd always be excess surplus grapefruit thrown out there by Tippah Wholesale. And we walked to school back then, as you all heard, and some of you did too. And I used to walk down the railroad. It was shortest part distance between two parts of the straight line. It was straight from my house down the railroad. Anyhow, you'd see grapefruit everywhere. A lot of these people out in the country, they grew their own food. They hadn't seen grapefruit before. And when they got them, they thought they were oranges. They'd take one bite in that orange juice. When they found out it was sour, they'd throw the whole dang package of the whole box. So that we had to walk on the grapefruit holes all the way down. So this, getting back this Halloween, Gary Hobson was a cut up, and they had the old fire escape up the stairs to the old Ripley High School. And son went up the fire escape and was these rotten grapefruit, he was smashing them against the blackboard. And when he run out of grapefruit, he'd come back to the open window. Young Gary was several years younger than son. He had him as his accomplice. And son would come and look down to him, he looked to him real funny and said, "More fruit, please." And Gary reached up and handed him more rotten grapefruit. Okay, that's a sign from us. That won't do a lot for you. It's different kind of history book. But anyhow, starting from what I see right across the street over here, behind the stores there on this side of the square. I see the picture when I was a kid of my aunt, Bessie Nance, who married Oscar Shadd, when she was a teenage girl, Judy McCarty, and probably Miriam Pittner, and a bunch of those teenage girls, several years older than I was. And the carnival used to come here, be right on this, where the parking lot is right across the street here, behind the store. Carnival would come there. They had the merry-go-round at this end. They had the Ferris wheel in the middle, and on down they had the swing. And young Benton Elliott was courting Judy McCarty at that time, and later married her. She's, any of you don't know, she's the mother of married Benton Elliott, and the mother of Bobby and Charlie Elliott. And of course, Benton went on and spent most of his adult life in Washington, D.C. as an assistant, who was to Jamie Whitney. And that's a picture that just jumps out at me. Talking about the swing, I look out the back of the store, and Albert Timmons, Johnny Timmons' older brother, was a single man back then. He's the first man to get down to the carnival for the rides on Saturdays. And he had real dark black hair, and he put a lot of bear grease or oil on that hair, and he slicked it back real straight, looking for a girl. And he'd get down there around 3 o'clock, 3:30. Nobody else on the lot, get to ride no swing. He'd wait till when the crowd gathered up, once a girl or two got on there, he's one of these to get behind the girl and take his feet, tantalizing her, picking at her, and push her way out. So I can't help but give you a lot of this trivia, but we're going to radiate out from that and get some more serious stuff. But it's too soon after the meal to start out with this heavier stuff. I don't pretend to come and give you any learned treatise, because y'all can teach me. I should be sitting there listening to some of y'all. But another thing that happened behind our store, with our being a gun dealer, Herb Parsons, and some of you may remember, some of you won't. You've heard of Herb Parsons Lake up in Tennessee. Herb Parsons was a trick shooter, an expert marksman for Winchester Army. He traveled all over the United States. He wasn't only a marksman, he was a showman too. He talked his way through it. He was entertaining with his talk as he was his shooting. Anyhow, imagine now, with his shotgun, put on his shooting exhibition here on this parking lot behind our store. Of course, Highway 15 bypass wasn't down here. They blocked off the street going up the hill. Highway 15 was Main Street coming through, and all that, on North Main where I live now. So there was a young colored bar in the class, and Herb asked him, I offered to give him a quarter or 50 cents or something, which a big quarter was big money. He would hold a cigarette in his mouth. He's going to take a .22 rifle and shoot the fire off it. Oh, no, sir, I ain't no way. Oh, no. So Herb reached over in the weed patch and pulled out a weed about this long and said, well, if I put the cigarette on the end of this weed and you hold it, oh, yes, sir, I'll give you a quarter. Yes, sir, I'll do it. Stand right behind the door, back door of our store. So Herb took his rifle, and it said, being an expert. He cut that dang weed off about that far down, and that little cut boy died, you know, big as so. And where I live now, Jess Jameson owned that place back in those days. He had a skeet ranch where my garden spot used to be. It hadn't been a garden spot for 30 or 40 years. Now, anyhow, it hadn't been a garden, it's been a garden spot. He had a skeet range there, and he put on his show up there one night. And the reason he had it then was because Jess Jameson owned the property. And he was holding there in conjunction with his selling ammunition and so forth. And that's the same property, looking at the things here in the museum of Robert E. Jameson, the fiddler, who was Bill Monroe's first fiddler. Jess Jameson, when Bill Monroe was a nobody ever heard of him. He was just more or less, I call him more of a drifter than anything else. He was just long, tall, didn't have a car. And Jess had him park his trailer on his lot up there, about where I live now, this one down there. And I remember seeing him, you'd see him walking down, it was gravel, Highway 15 was gravel, up there by North Ripley Baptist Church, walking toward down, from day to day. And Robert E. Jameson, his daddy was my daddy's first cousin. And these other boys in their band were Jameson, and his Tobin had the store up there in the street name. He also is the man that built the North Ripley Baptist Church. And he went through darker years. He had a beer joint up there where his skeet range was before he moved into Milton. And it's called the Barrel House. Anyhow, after he went to Indianola, I think in the same kind of business, he came back here and completely changed man and he's the one founded the North Ripley Baptist Church and built the thing pretty well financially. And praise be unto God. So all of his son and his nephew, they got their musical talent partly from him. Their grandmother was a man. Generation. Looking across then to the building where the People's Bank is today. That was a home, a frame house. It's pictures that some of these old pictures at the library or the bank show you that. And the Clayton family, Mr. and Miss Ira Clayton lived in the house there and had one boy, Hugh. And Hugh Clayton was a lawyer. Unfortunately for Ripley, he moved off to New Albany. You know, when you go in across the Tallahatchie Bridge, as you approach New Albany, the sign there says Hugh N. Clayton Drive or Boulevard or whatever they call it now. During World War II, while I was at Ole Miss, Hugh Clayton was the head of the Red Cross. I think he was the national head. And he came over to Ole Miss to make a talk over in Fulton Chapel while I was a student there. And I remember his opening words, his talk, and co-eds and all this, And he looked over and he said, well, I had forgotten how much feminine prostitute we've got over here at Old Mill. I told somebody about some young man recently, prostitute. They ever heard the word prostitute, I couldn't, they don't teach like they did. They can know that.
That's a big word like watermelon, man.
And another Clayton, Mr. Roy Clayton. And Herman Dillard, later you lived in this house after it was vacated by the Clayton family. Herman told me that Roy Clayton was the first game boy Tippah County had. Roy had 3 Irish World songs, illustrious songs. Neil Clayton was the eldest. And Neil taught me math in the 5th grade. I wish to high heaven he'd taught me the 6th grade, because I skipped the 6th grade and it was a mistake. I've been weak in math ever since. Neil went on and was a geologist, I believe, and went to one of the big oil companies and spent his career in either Central or South America. And Dr. Ralph Clayton, who most of us should know now because he moved back here a few years ago, was the youngest. And Ralph told me up there in the store just a few years ago, he said Neil was the brains in the family. Because, oh yes, he was head so. The middle brother was Curtis. And my memory of Curtis was, you look on the picture, the old picture of Squares People's Bank, it's got Nance Grocery, Charlie Nance Grocery. My memory of Neil, Richie's drugstore, where we bought all our school books and book satchels when the school year would start. I'd see Neil coming from there where they had books, going into, he always had 2 or 3 books on him when he was a young teenager. And going into Nance drugstore. They had 2 fast dogs in the family. I talked to Dr. Ralph Clayton about this when they moved back here after he retired. They have Iggy and Mickey. So you get more than your share of trivia out of this thing. Anyhow, Curtis went on and spent his career in Washington, D.C. And I didn't know what he was doing. It was secret mission. Curtis was back here for a reunion, high school reunion just a few years ago. He came out of school. And he told me, said, I've lived within a block or 2 blocks, either the White House or the Capitol. He told for how many years on that. And Dr. Ralph Clayton, his younger brother, told me what Curtis was, the project that Curtis was on during World War II. What it was, they were designing and developing a cushioned absorbent skirt to go around our ships. So the fleet supplying our troops overseas, when they hit these floating mines in the sea, they wouldn't detonate the mine. They just had enough cushion to it, so apparently they protected the thing. And Dr. Clayton, the younger, was a radiologist. And he was renowned enough that when my Uncle Cash King, who was also a radiologist, probably one of the instructors for Rap when he went through school at UT, my uncle, Dr. Cash King, was on his deathbed. He and his wife, Mary, when the bill, we mentioned Ralph Clayton's name. We weren't sure where he was, and Dr. King looked up in his bed and hadn't been all that coherent. He said, in El Paso, Texas. Said, there's a building name for him now. And there is. Ralph told me the story after he retired and came back up. He used to hang out at the store, sitting on the cane bottom chair right in his cash register. He said he took a sabbatical from the hospital out in El Paso. There was building that they were gonna build a new building out there. It was a building in Memphis that Ralph was smitten by. And he brought some architects, took off a year, brought the architects, and they stayed in Memphis, studying this, I forget which building it is there in Memphis. Ralph explained to me why the advantages to the buildings, that everything in the center was the core of the operation, the functional part of that. The elevator system and the plumbing and the wiring system, all was in this center column, and then radiating out with the rooms and so forth. And that building in El Paso is named, the Clayton building, or the Ralph Clayton building. In the medical profession, Dr. R.M. Adams had his office above our store, wasn't directly over our store, but where John Reed has his building now, where Bobby Hill had the physical therapy. The upstairs there, Dr. Adams had his office. And he had sons, Dr. Milton Adams and Dr. Lorenzo Adams. And Dr. Milton was a world-renowned plastic surgeon. And celebrities from Europe used to come to give his services. And Lorenzo then also became a plastic surgeon. Lorenzo used to go fishing, and my daddy and my granddaddy and me, bass fishing. He'd hang out in front of the store and help us sing for minute. And had a wonderful sense of humor. And when his mother, the elder Dr. Adams' wife, when she was buried out here at Ripley Cemetery, I was at the funeral. And after the service, another son, I believe he was Herman. He was, I forget whether he was a banker, a businessman, prominent man in some other field outside of medicine. When it was over, by that time, Dr. Lorenzo and his son, Dr. Frank Adams, is a rheumatologist in Memphis. By the way, he was selected by the other doctors in Memphis as the doctor they would go to if they had to go to one themselves. He had a plaque on his wall in the crowd. So Herman, the brother who was our doctor, came over to Lorenzo, and maybe Milton was still living at that time, and the younger ones. He said, you young fellas think y'all are not the ones that started this plastic surgery business. My mother was in the crowd. And he said, look at Edwina, and he was showing my mother's face. He said, here's where this town started, with their granddaddy, daddy and granddaddy. And my mother was in with my daddy on the front seat, and there was another couple in the back seat, double dating one night. And back in the old days, the rural roads, there was weeds overgrown. There was a stump in the center of the road that you couldn't see. And they hit that stump, and it threw my mother through the windshield. And you're talking about a small world. I didn't know this back when I married Virginia Aldridge. Red Aldridge, Virginia's father, had bought an expensive silk shirt. And his cousin was going out on a date that night and talking Red and letting him borrow that brand new silk shirt. Red didn't want him to have it, but he talked him into it. So when this accident happened, my mother was about to be dead. And this other boy took that fine silk shirt of Red's off and used that to stop the blood flow. It must have been a very severe cut by that and by Herman Adams singing this occasion out to show these young doctors just where the plastic surgery art started. All of my mother. There's some more trivia, but ties in with his family. We've got the doctors, the Murrays, who were doctors. Dr. Will Murray, one of his claims to fame, he's the one who brought me into the world. I was born right up here in the parking lot. Oh, it's the parking lot this side of John Stafford's dental office. The vacant lot there, it's right across from there. Mr. Miss R.L. Nance's home. And there where McBride's funeral home is, was a big frame house where the Lockharts lived. That's Charles Lockhart's forebears. And Spud Rouse, mother, grew up there. And later there, Mr. Bertie McBride, that was Bill McBride's father, moved in there. There was a big scraggly hardwood tree. I guess it never stood there for years and years. Bill tore that down and built a funeral home there. I never had thought of it when I get ready to make this talk, but Tippah County history and Faulkner hadn't occurred to me, but the only structure between where I was born and the Faulkner home, Colonel Faulkner home, was the old Baptist church, the old roundhouse Baptist church. And Hermie Porter, this is Hermie Hyatt, and a lot of y'all knew it. She was born Hermie Porter in this house here where the museum is today. My Aunt Mary King, the wife of this Dr. King I just quoted about, Dr. Gray, told me when she was about, I visited when she was around 90 years old. One day, she and Hermie Porter and the young girls were playing around the old Baptist church, and the baptistry was full of water. And these little girls fell in that baptistry and were drowned. And some man was working there across the street or something. She told me who, but I can't recall for sure who she said it was. Anyhow, he fished them out of her. They were drowned right there that day. Dr. Murray had a son, Dr. Charlie Miller Murray, first one. And he had a son, Charles Miller, the younger. His nickname was Bo Murray. And they were as different as daylight and dark in personality. The older Dr. Murray was just as brusque, had no tenderness in his soul, looked like, no humor, and all we kids dreaded. He just stayed sick before we had to go in. And Bo was altogether different, had a sense of humor, easy going. And Bo started to Ole Miss a few years before I did. He was instrumental in getting me into the turn there. I think maybe he's one to recommend me for. And the Guyton family of Blue Mountain. Dr. Guyton, who had the ear, nose, throat, for the two-story building there in Oxford, where Bo Murray worked, was a world-renowned doctor. And his children, this Dr. Pace over Chico, I think she's an internist, guest over there at our internist one. And then there's Dr. Guyton, her brother, both practicing in Tupelo today. And we've got several people in Tippah County named Charles Miller or Charles Ware. They used to be big about naming their babies. The doctor delivered that baby. Speaking of that, talk about Virginia. Virginia told me that when she was born, I forget whether the doctor who was tending to her was born at night. The doctor was old, and he dozed off and went sound asleep. So Miss Aldridge had Virginia while the doctor slept, and she turned over to the doctor and says, "I had her." Had to wake the doctor up to announce Virginia's arrival. In journalism, we've had, let's get to the field of education. Tippah County has been the beacon light for education in North Mississippi. And we started with Collegiate, Mississippi. I don't know of another county that you think. Marshall County, with the exception of Rusk County. Union County, I don't think of any learning institutions down there. Union, Lee, French, of course, except the state institutions. But I think we had the Collegiate School, which is really more of a college. Collegiate educated practically every high school superintendent and principal in North Mississippi. Roy Harrell came through that, and Professor Job, I believe, was the Oscar Shine. I told this on the local TV station. I don't know how many of you have heard that thing, if any. But Collegiate played Mississippi State football during the time too. And I'm not sure they may have won. I'm not sure they played. I think while Oscar Shine was playing. Later, Oscar played for Mississippi State. Anyhow, everybody, as I said, in the school profession just not came through that. And Miss Olena Rutherford, sister of Troy Rutherford, was in the store several years ago, walked up there to the cash register and said, I don't know whether you knew this or not, but my great-grandmother, Finch Ray, was the start of our Nance Hardware. And she said one night they were having a town meeting, and Finch Ray stood up and told them, said, Collegiate is big enough now to support a school. We need to organize a school. So it led to the creation of the school system. And to show you what a character he was, he had a leather tannery and a saddle shop. And he moved his leather tannery and saddle shop, moved his whole business to another location, and gave the lot where his business had been from the build of the Collegiate Baptist Church, which stands today. He lived right on top of the hill there above Collegiate Spring, at his farm down there, including Collegiate Spring. How many of you know what the word collegiate means? Everybody read it.
I used to call it shallow boot.
Huh?
I used to call it shallow boot.
It was a great school, boarding school. It came from
It's
everywhere.
iron impregnated. It's hard water. If you haven't been up there, go get you a slug of water, and you'll know why they named it Collegiate Spring. And I don't know how much time and trivia y'all can take, but Uncle Will Clemmer, who used to be in business in Cleveland, we had, every time Uncle Jim Ray, the son of Finch Ray, every time he had a birthday, Aunt Jewel, and Aunt Jewel Hudson, Aunt Jewel would have all of us up there for Uncle Jim's birthday. We'd go down the spring. And Uncle Will went down with us all one day and was talking, there's a big rock down there, I guess half as big as this room, maybe it's big. And Uncle Will said, on top of that rock, we used to have to stand on that rock to make our debate. But it's part of our school course that you had to make a debate before you graduated. I forget what his subject was, whether or not he won or lost. If you haven't been up there, you need to go. There's still fossil imprints in that rock. You can see where the sea used to cover it. It's worried about global warming, but the sea level around, it's already raised, so it's been above Cleveland, Mississippi. They built a little picnic table stuff up at the top of the hill there. I don't think it's too good. But coming from the collegiate school system, then we had Professor Brown had Mississippi Heights Academy. And it was famous over the country. I won't say world renowned, but it was renowned in this United States. He was a strict disciplinarian. And I see Ms. J.E. Brown on this daughter of the professor here. I believe that was his initial, Ms. J.E. I'm not quite I think. I see Ms. Will Gurney. And Will Gurney married Miss Nance's daughter. Sam Godwin married another one, but Miss Nance was a brother to R.L. Nance, my granddad. Professor, the one that didn't go through collegiate, some who did went to Professor Brown's school there. And they were big enough school, Ripley used to play Mississippi Heights football game. In fact, when I was on the Ripley team, we played Mississippi Heights. I think we beat them both years. That's one of the few teams we could beat when I was playing. They were about the same size we were. The dang fields on Sandrock Hill, you tackle off on the field, you have to get skin bruises. The Professor Brown had a horror of being, when he died, of being put in the ground. With my experience in the funeral business, these characters of old, the biggest part of them, I buried and took part in the very long with Pippin Pickens and the day and the rest of the day that Professor Brown died, and the day that Mr. Lawrence Clayton died, Lawrence and his wife didn't have any children. They didn't mention them. Never been two worse days, weather-wise. Professor Brown had a big concrete slab. First he had a raised structure built above the ground, and he had this big concrete slab about this thick and the size of a grave, overlapped the grave. And it was sleeting, cold, windy rain, freezing rain, and cold wind blowing. When we lowered the casket in the grave, I don't know how many, Granddaddy used to call them darkies, how many darkies they had, that big stout black men we had there. And it took 8 or some would say 6 or 8 to be safe, to lift that thing to close that grave. And when Lawrence Clayton died, the weather wasn't that cold, but it was the rain and so we had a time up there with that. We buried Mr. and Ms. Ira Clayton, the parents of Hugh Clayton, along with children there. And in Blue Mountain College, we buried Mother Berry. We're talking about bringing the funeral business in. Perry Lowry was a brother to Dr. Lawrence Lowry. Dr. Lawrence Lowry was president of Blue Mountain College. His brother Perry had a business career in New York, Boston or New York, high up in the investment banking or that type of thing. We were standing out at the grave one day before the hearse got there with the casket. Perry had on his seersucker suit and white shoes and a Panama hat, dapper looking fella. And I reckon he had a little bit of resentment. He spoke up and said, well, they all always talking about Lawrence, Brother Lawrence. He said, I've made more money in a week than Lawrence makes in a year. But they all rave about Lawrence. He had a little burr on his saddle, apparently. Then, PMC, collegiate, we had Professor Joe used to room used to board with my grandparents. And Miss Erin McKinstry at one time, she married Aubrey Street, lawyer. He was a lawyer, started in with Captain Spike, I believe it was. And, understudy on him. Buried them too, by the way, with Aubrey Street. When we carried Aubrey Street to the hospital in Memphis, this was after my days at college. Charlie Connolly, the quarterback who went pro and played in the Pro Bowl, that said that the greatest Pro Bowl ever played. He played against Johnny United and lost, by the way, in overtime. Anyhow, we carried Aubrey Street in the hospital room and still had him on the cot. There was no attendant in there, and I needed help me get Mr. Aubrey over on his hospital bed. And I looked outside the room door and I saw the heels of this man going down the hall. It was a Charlie Connolly. And I learned from his buddies in Carsdale, from Carsdale, and his nickname was Roach. And I said, "Hey, Roach." He turned around and said, "Yeah." He said, "We've got a man in here that needs put in his bed in the hospital, and I need some help. Do you mind hitting him?" Be glad to. So we went in. Charlie got one in, I got the other bill. And when I told Billy Boys, and they were much impressed that they just had Mr. Aubrey handle with Charlie Connolly. Reason I'm leading up to this motion, their son Billy Boys, speaking of the professional journalist, went on and spent his entire career working in the commercial field. He used to host some of these roads down there for some of the big shops. And then Tommy Covington, our librarian's brother, Jimmy, was a political reporter in the commercial field up until within the past year when they cut some of their staff because their reader dropped off. Let's see, there notes did come in. Aviation. Back in the days of Colonel Roscoe Charter, the airport over at Cart's name for, he used to barnstorm here. Roy Carlo was a local man. He lived right across from the city, where the city hall is today. And he had two daughters, Marjorie and Dorothy. One of the daughters had an article in the Sentinel a few years ago about her father. And in this article she stated that Roy Carlo was the first man ever to jump out of an airplane in a parachute. Now, I don't have documentation of that, but his daughter, I have no reason to doubt it or refute it, because I know they were early in the field. We used to have airplanes come here and they'd charge $2.50 or $5 to take people. I never would go up. One reason, when I was about 5 years old, the Hines boys, prominent young men who lived in the big house across the railroad, across from Tippah Wholesale, that Mike and Sandra Love redone a year or so ago. That was where Claude and Ora Hines, my grandmother called cousin Ora, lived, and they had these two sons, Bobby and Tommy. One Sunday afternoon, it was kind of a hot, muggy day. The airport was across from where Jim Miller has his apartments now, the one that Freddie Fodder built out here. It's old CC camp across the highway. And on takeoff, they had an accident. The plane, the atmosphere was so it had no lift to it. The plane rose up and then crashed to the ground and killed both of them. I've got a picture here. Somebody, it might have been one of you. Was it you?
Probably so.
Somebody got this off the internet.
One of the boys, and Roy Connell was a big friend with the Hines brothers.
Well, I've got the picture here. Roy, who was the instructor, and Tommy is the one I think who's in the picture.
And Roy, after the crash, one of the boys lived a while. Roy Connell. I got this from the archive the other day. I meant to bring it. The article out of the Sentinel about the crash.
Okay, the one The tallest slender boy on the left, as you face it, is Tommy Hines, right?
I think, yeah, right, another Roy
Looks like
Connor.
him because Bobby didn't look like that as I wasn't saying, I wasn't but 5 or 6 years old. By the way, one of these Hines boys is already married. He's married to Chick Strickland. And after he was killed, later on, my daddy's first cousin, Ray Clement, married Jim Strickland, this Hines boy with him. And, one of the first times I ever got to shoot a .22 rifle, my cousin, Ray, his nickname was Beck, after he married Zip, he carried me and Zip, I was just a little kid out behind the house, we called it the Cedars, over there behind where Bill Pittner lived. And at that time, I used to shoot a gun in my yard here in town. Shoot boxes of .22 cartridges until we had a chain. Took me over and let me shoot a .22 rifle with it. And the Sarah Cole house, the big mansion across from the Presbyterian Church up there, the old Presbyterian Church. The same Ray Clement, he's buried at Ripley Cemetery, died when he was just 29 years old. But he's already a banker, and he lived a lot of life for 29 years. He had a little roadster with a rumble seat. He drove a blackbird in the yard there at Sarah Cole's house. He emptied both barrels of that shotgun. He carried, I'd say, a dozen blackbirds up the front door and gave them either from Miss Cole or else from the colored woman that cooked Miss Cole. Somebody in the Cole family was eating blackbirds. I don't know who it was. Sarah denied that when I told it later on, but a kid that age doesn't forget. We carried blackbirds. It could have been for the colored cook. How many of you know that Ripley once had a bottling plant? A soft drink bottling plant? You nod your head, do you know it? You know it
What
too.
is it, bottle of moonshine?
Huh?
Bottle of moonshine or Coke?
No, soft drink.
Oh, okay.
Dixie Dew.
I've heard of several.
Now, this is off of Jim Ray. He's the son of this great granddaddy Fetch Ray that I told about that started the business in Cleveland, started the school. This is off of Jim. This young man here behind the barrel is Bone Daniel, Elmo Daniel. He was killed in a car wreck. And the ironic thing, his daughter Noreen later was killed in a car wreck also. And the reason Bone was killed, as I recall, there had been a wreck up north of town. And he went speeding up there to get to the wreck to help him out and was killed getting up there. I think I'm correct on that. That's what I thought. You look like you're expressing that wrong. I think I'm right on that. Pretty sure.
Carly, where was that bottling plant located? Where was the area that?
I'm going to tell you.
That's all I need to
But
say.
I'm glad you called my attention. There's a little alley next to our store, between us and where the Seven Office used to be, where Diane Porch has got her hand out, check writing, business thing. An alley goes down there, Larry Ridge's building. The first basement, as I recall, National Wade had a cleaner, and called it a pressing shop. The next one was where this body plant was, where I was in. And there was an old fellow lived out here past Will Thomason. On the right out there, where that Jackson boy is. A few years ago, when Virginia was antiquing, this fellow had one or two of those bottles. And he's been dead for several years. I don't know where those bottles went up. Somebody needs to find those things.
Were those bottles made out of stone back then?
No.
They were glass?
The picture here will show you.
I know in the early days they were stone bottles.
in the writing, book writing profession, which we all know about Faulkner, and I don't know how many of you are aware of some about John Grissom having lived here and gone to school here. And when John came out here to make his first talk at the Rotary Club several years ago, I didn't know, didn't tell Virginia that I wasn't aware that every woman in Ripley wanted to attend that talk. And the reason Virginia wanted to go is when John Grissom was going to school here, he lived up on the Antioch Road, on the Sail Bar Road. And he used to come to the house with Philip, my son Philip. I think they rode to school with something, get off at my house. He'd stay there and play with Philip going on to his house later on that afternoon. And then Andrew Brown wrote a history. I meant to ask Tommy this the name of this, but you all probably know about it. When I was a kid, Andrew Brown is James Tyser's uncle. Tyser Brown's uncle. And I used to meet him, he's like Faulkner. When his mind was on his writing so forth, one day you speak to Andy Brown, how you doing? The next day you speak to him, he didn't know you in the world. And I wasn't too enamored of him for that reason. I was a young kid, and I was big spot and be ignored. I reckon what he was, he's probably hashing over his mind by his book. William Faulkner was the same way. Faulkner was over at Oxford when I was going to school at Ole Miss. We'd eat at, hang out in the Cottage Inn restaurant, Aubrey C's Cottage Inn. Faulkner would come in at night and sit over there at the table to himself, and never look at anybody, speak to anybody. And my being Ripley, this Ripley connection, and deal there, I was food up, thinking about it, never know. He lived for himself. The businessmen, here's an old picture of the old businessmen around the square, in Ripley, some off the square. Okay.
Lose your place?
On the front row on the left is R.L. Nance, my grandmother. The man in the middle next to him on the front is Marshall Bennett. And the man down on the right is Patterson, I believe, Hugh Patterson. I don't know anything about it. Marshall Bennett was a blacksmith. He was the one that lived on the parking lot there this side of John Stafford's dental office. He had an orchard behind his house. He had a big garden. Always the first man in the county that had cabbage, I reckon. And he planted his cabbage in February. And Aaron Harrison, who wound up being the librarian at Waller, married my cousin Charles Ray, the grandson of this fence Ray, the son of the man with the bombing plant. She and her brother, I guess Bennett Harrison, who was supervisor in North Carolina, used to come visit Marshall Bennett's sister, Lillian Bennett. She was a hunchback. The back had been broken or the arm or something. On the back row, he said his fingers, little fingers, been surprised. In the middle is Ramsey Nance. Ramsey Nance had a wholesale dry goods business next to where Smiley Baldwin's jewelry store was. And his daughter, Sudie now, in the education field, I failed to mention Duke Upton. Frank Humphreys off of Duke, who was president of Mississippi State College and later went to Wyoming.
Laramie,
And-
Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah, and died there and sued him.
She was my big sister, so I.
And,
Him and Ramsey were brother-in-laws, wasn't
Who?
they? Him and Ramsey Nellens were brother-in-laws. They married Mr. Robertson's daughters.
Yeah.
Judah Robertson.
Yeah.
And where, the
The old
love.
Robinson Hotel was down there.
Where-
When the passenger train would stop, the drummers and traveling seminar, they had room down there before we had Craig Hotel. They stayed at the Robinson. By the way, y'all know Ripley used to have 2 swimming pools when I was a kid? We had one down there at Troy Craig's, down where the walking track is now. And we had one across the railroad by Elliot's Gym. Mike Roberts, where he's crossing the City Hall, across the railroad where Mike Roberts been in the Teal Supply back this way. They had a miniature golf course there when I was a little kid. They had a swimming pool. And speaking of the water table, let's speak about the water table in those days. I used to go swimming in Town Creek up here above McDonald, on up that pasture above there. Colored women used to fish when you walk across the bridge to go to the walking track down here. I used to sing harp hits on Highway 4 and up here on 15 where 370 cuts off. Water standing this deep year round, full of fish. Mostly bass, not big fish. And every 200 or 300 yards in Tippah bottom, there'd be another overflow well. I don't know, they've all dried up about one out there now. And then Carter, one for him, and it's just called Ripley. When it Stubbs, when I was a kid, the one at Stubbs Hill out there,
I think this quit.
it was a gusher.
I think this quit now.
It's real, and they piped it up to the house on top of the hill. But this world has changed in our life, in my lifetime. Things we could do then. Bullfrog. Bullfrogs used to keep me awake here in town.
Which one does it?
I haven't heard
One
one in years.
hike up there, we used to go in and get water. That's a lot down to the well down.
Charlie,
We covered pretty much the gist of what I was doing, not a lot more than I didn't mean.
I got something I might add, Mr. Nance, you talking about Professor Brown. He died in the middle of 46, in the 40s, wasn't he? Anyway, I was down with my grandfather, he lived just south of Blue Mountain, and he'd been, walked up to Blue Mountain, and they heard that they'd finished Professor Brown's grave. He's still living. They said he went out there to look at it and fainted like he fell in it.
Oh,
So from what you said,
he had a phobia about dying and being put in the ground.
anyway, that goes along with what you said, he already had his grave.
Yeah, he was out there with a slab across it, they had to take the slab off.
Yeah, I seen him.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it was.
You ought to been there the day we covered it, put it back on.
I wasn't but
Now,
7 or 8 years old, I remember.
Talking trivia, there's a tale, several may have heard, in the story, back years ago, that some of the Mississippi high schools had been going over to Blue Mountain College, and the girls had been tying a bed sheet to the ground of the bed and letting the sheet down the window, and these high schools were climbing up and getting in their room.
Right.
Until Professor Brown got wind of it. And one night, he went over and tapped on it, went in, the girls let the sheet down, and we put it up, expecting to be one of the young high schools. When they saw that ball
The ball head turned loose.
they screamed and dropped that sheet. He hit the ground and blown him up with the water.
Yeah, I've heard that sometimes too.
Always tried that some years.
That's what I told you about all I know.